Thanks, Ray. The 5 love languages. How many people have heard about it? How many people have read the book? How many people are actually still practicing it? Even better question. Not so sure. Well, with Valentine's Day coming up, I thought, how fun, and I just sat back and I was like, for me personally, my journey with the 5 love languages was I heard about them, and then what I did is I went out and I actually looked them up, and this happened about 10 years ago, and then I kind of generally had an idea of what my love languages were, and guess what? That's about as far as it went in terms of my own experience with the love languages. And then what happened was, about 3 months ago, Audible, I belong to Audible, by the way, if you don't belong to Audible, a little commercial here, it's phenomenal. But Audible offered, for those of us that are enjoying Audible, they offered us an opportunity to get 2 free books. And so I was flipping through their thing, and all of a sudden the 5 love languages showed up, and I said, well, hey, I haven't actually read the book, maybe I should do that. And so I got the book, and I started listening to it, and it was at that moment where I was like, oh my God, I have completely missed what they were talking about. I completely did not fully understand what it was. And as I got excited about it, I thought, well, how could I bring this in here? Of course, then all of a sudden I realized it was Valentine's Day, number one. Number two, one of the things that I learned about by going through the material, and I'm going to share this with you, is I think one of the things that we should do as an organization, as a center, a spiritual center, is give people tools that they can use to help make their lives better. And what I realized is this is an amazing tool. It really is. From the standpoint of not just people that are in a relationship, but also individuals. So just understand something. This just isn't a talk about somebody that's in a relationship. It's just as important for people that are singles. So I want to stress that when we start off. So I started doing some research on this stuff and going even deeper, and here's what I didn't realize. This book was actually published back in 1992. It's been a New York Times bestseller since 2009. If you go look today, it is still a New York Times bestseller right now. It's been published in over 30 languages. It's sold over 13 million copies. Why? There's one reason. It works. It's effective. It's powerful. So what about the author, Gary Chapman? Where did this come from? How did he come up with this thing? Well, he began his career, he actually went to school as an anthropologist. That's what his original degree is. He got several after the fact. But his original degree was in anthropology, specifically linguistics. And what happened is he started working for Calvary Church in North Carolina in 1971, and they hired him to be a teacher and a counselor, a family counselor. He didn't know what he was doing, not a clue. But he had people coming to him. And over time, what happened is he started working with these people is he realized that there was these patterns with these couples that were coming in to see him time and time and time again. And he started to observe that, and he said, there's got to be something here. There's got to be something I can do because I'm just seeing these things. And what can I do with them? And what he realized was that when it comes to somebody loving us, and I would argue that includes ourselves, that we have expectations on what that should look like. And if it doesn't look like that, what happens is it creates conflict within the relationship. Does everybody know what I'm talking about here? Yep, everyone's going, yep. Right? And so what happened is as he continued to work, again, he's developing this thing, right? As he continued to work, he observed that those expectations could actually be defined and eventually be categorized into what he eventually called languages. And that's how the whole thing started. Because what he fully understood was that, what I mentioned earlier, deep down inside, we all have this need for love. All of us do, right? In fact, in the book, he's quoted as saying, the emotional need for love must be met if we are to have emotional health. So in other words, we have to have this thing called love if we're going to be healthy emotionally, right? He actually came up with this concept, which I think is pretty cool, and he called it a love tank. A love tank. So what is a love tank? Well, the best way for me to explain it is, think about your car. Think about gas tank. First of all, what does that mean? We all have one. We all have a love tank, right? When it's full, generally speaking, guess what? Happy. And when it's not full, guess what? We're not happy. We're not happy. He also said and realized that there's things that we can do to fill our own tank, number one, but more importantly, especially those of us in a relationship, there's things that we can do to help fill our partner's love tank. That's interesting. How does it get filled then, you ask? Well, the bottom line is something happens, we'll talk about those in just a minute, that makes us feel loved. Simple. How does it get emptied? Well, something that happens that makes us feel not loved. Pretty basic premise, right? So what happened is he started to work with these couples. He's having all these observations, but it's not quite there yet, but he's still starting to play with some of these thoughts. And so he sat down with this couple at one point in time that were having a hard time in their relationship. And they called him in and said, we really would like to talk to you. And so what he did is he went and he spent time with, first he sat down with the husband, and the husband saying, look, I'm a good guy. I got a great job. I work 50, 60 hours a week. I make good money. I don't cheat on my wife. I'm not a drunk. Like, I'm doing everything, but for some reason, it's like I work my tail off and she just doesn't appreciate it. He said, okay. So then he sat down with her, and she agreed to all of the above. But then she says, he doesn't do anything around the house to help me. Nothing. And he never has time for me. So, what does he do? Again, he hasn't formulated everything yet, so he's kind of experimenting. So he thinks, well, this is going to be easy. I'm going to sit down there and have him make a list of things that they appreciate about each other. So he had the wife sit down and make a list of the things she appreciated about the husband. He had the husband sit down and make a list of the things that he appreciated about her. And he said, so here's what I want you to do. Twice a week, I want you to say something to the other person that you appreciate about him. Number one. Number two, you can't complain. Complaining's done for 2 months. That's all I want you to do, and I want you to see what happens. And so what happened is, after 2 months, he touched base. He talked to the husband first and said, how's it going? Guy says, I think it's going good. I feel good. She's telling me everything she appreciates about me. It's pretty amazing. So the husband's feeling great, right? Talks to the wife. How's it going? The wife says, it's okay. I guess I'll do it. But I don't really feel where anything's really happening in the relationship. And it was at that point in time that all of a sudden, everything started to click for him. Because here's what he realized. He realized that we all have a different way of communicating love. In other words, we all speak and use a different language when it comes to love. It's different. And the problem isn't that we have different languages. That's not the problem at all. The problem is that we think that everybody else is using the same language. That's the problem. Right? In the book, he says, my conclusion after many years of marriage counseling is that there are 5 emotional love languages, 5 ways that people speak and understand emotional love. In the field of linguistics, a language may have numerous dialects and variations. Similarly, within the 5 basic emotional love language, there are many dialects. Numbers of ways to express love within a love language is limited only by one's imagination. The important thing is to speak the love language of your spouse. And I may add to that, especially if you care. Seldom do a husband and wife have the same primary emotional love language. I'm going to say that again. Seldom do they have the same love language. We tend to speak our primary love language, and we become confused when our spouse does not understand what we are communicating. We are expressing our love, but the message does not come through because we are speaking what to them is a foreign language. Once you identify and learn to speak your spouse's primary love language, I believe that you have discovered the key to a long-lasting, loving marriage. Love need not evaporate after the wedding, but in order to keep it alive, most of us will have to put forth the effort to learn a secondary love language. We cannot rely on our native tongue if our spouse does not understand it. If we want them to feel the love that we are trying to communicate, we must express in their primary love language. That blew my mind. That blew my mind. What did I do? Well, I knew what my love language was. I kind of had an idea of what my wife's love language was, but I didn't understand that not only did I need to learn her love language, but then I needed to express it to her, right? So again, I'm just going to repeat what the book said. You got to do 4 things actually. Number 1, discover what the 5 love languages are. Number 2, discover what your own love language is. Number 3, discover what your partner, spouse, love language is. Number 4, express love in their love language. Now let's just get real here. How many people are actually doing this? Yeah, very few of us. Very, very few. At least on a consistent basis, right? And again, I want to emphasize this. This just isn't for couples. Notice what he said. He said the first thing, learn your own love language. Why? So that you understand how you work. We don't all receive love in the same way. And understanding how we take in love, how we understand love is hugely important. It's a need and it's a want. And in order for us to receive love, sometimes we have to let people know what that looks like. Number 1. Number 2, we also, when we figure out our love language, we can figure out what we need to do for ourselves to feel like we're loved. We need to figure out for ourselves what we need to do so that we can feel loved, so that our love tank can be full. Right? Yeah. So, let's start off with the basics. What are the love languages? Words of affirmation. That was Oprah's, right? Also one of mine. Words of affirmation are words that are used to build someone up, right? Compliments. Susan, you look really nice this morning. Yeah, absolutely. Words of encouragement. Words of acknowledgement. You know, me recently, we're going to talk about this shortly, but the fundraiser, right? I cannot tell you how touching that is for me personally, because to me it's an acknowledgement of what it is that I'm up to and what I'm doing. It meant the world to me. So that was an acknowledgement or words of acknowledgement. I appreciate you. I really, really am grateful to have you in my life. I tell you this all the time, and I mean it sincerely. Or just a simple thank you. Thank you for being you. Thanks, Ray, for being you. I appreciate you. Yeah, right? What is it not? Well, let's start off with the basics. Complaining. Telling someone to do something are not words of acknowledgement, right? Silence. In other words, not saying something when maybe something needs to be said are not words of acknowledgement. Okay? So, words of acknowledgement, one of the love languages. And if that's your love language, then that's something that you need to feel on a regular basis, whether it's coming from yourself or whether it's coming from your partner. Quality time, the second love language. Quality time, very specific time that you spend with yourself or with your partner. Quality time, right? Focused attention. We are going to sit down and we are just going to have a really beautiful meal together, and we're going to take our phones and we're going to turn them off, and we're going to turn off the television set, and we are just going to be in each other's presence. I want to be with you. I really do. I really just want to be with you. Focused attention. Quality conversations. Not talking about the weather. Not talking about the Super Bowl. Although I guess you could. A little bit of fun in there, but right? It's not, you just want to focus on having a quality conversation. Quality activities. Quality. Let's go for a hike. Let's go for a walk. Let's hold hands and walk together. Right? Quality activity. What is not? Watching television. Now, I'm not saying occasionally you can't snuggle up on the couch and watch a good movie, but generally speaking, to sit together and then turn on that box and both of you go numb and not say a word to each other is not exactly quality time. Right? Doing chores together. Again, sometimes, okay, but in terms of counting that as your quality of time, probably not. Probably not. Or doing anything else like that, going grocery shopping or something like that. Again, there's times when you can do it and you have fun, but if you're talking about quality time, there's a specific focus. It sounds something like this. I really want to spend time with you. I really want to be, keyword be with you. And just appreciate you for who and what you are and for you being in my life. That's quality time. That's quality time. A third of the gift, the third gift is actually, or the language, is receiving gifts. Gifts are just visual symbols of love. So yeah, we think about Valentine's Day, and of course we go out to the jewelry stores, and that could be a gift, I guess, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could be something really, really simple and small and really super inexpensive. It could be a gift of your time. It could be something that's handmade. It could be a love letter. It could be a song that you wrote for somebody. Get creative. It doesn't matter what the gift is. All that it matters is the message behind the gift is, I've taken time to really, really think about you, and I've done something about that, and I want to express it to you. And it can be so little. It can be so little. One of my favorite Christmas gifts this year was from Joan Dugan. She gave us, my wife and I, this little tiny hand-knitted Christmas ornament that was stunning. It was beautiful, and you could tell it took her a lot of time to do it. But it was simple, and yet it meant the world to my wife and I. It was simple. It can be that easy. Receiving gifts is one of my love languages. I don't need it to be big and fancy or anything else like that, but I have to admit, when I get something, just like a simple note, or I just had somebody from work just send me a box of cookies, right? Something so simple, but the fact that they took the time to think about, well, what do I want to share? And then they select it, and then they got to mail it, and then they got to send it. It touches my heart. It fills me. It fills my tank, right? The next love language, acts of service. And these are things that you do that you know makes your partner happy. And you seek to please them by serving them. And when I say that, understand this. This isn't something, it's just good. There's like really, really good intentions from your heart that's in there. It's like, I really want to do this because I know it's going to make my partner really happy. That's why I want to do it, because I know that it's going to bring them joy. Does that mean that I'm going to necessarily like doing it? Maybe not. But that's not the important part of it. The important part of it is you're doing it because you know how much happiness it's going to bring your partner, and you're willing to do it. Why? Because you love them. And you want to help them fill their love tank, because then they're going to be happy. And you care about their happiness. Genuinely care about their happiness. And these gifts, these acts of service, they require thought, they require planning, timing, effort, and energy. Yeah, it takes time. And if it's done with a positive spirit, then they're indeed expressions of love. They are, right? So, you could cook a meal. You could set the table. You could empty the dishwasher. You could vacuum. You could change a diaper. You could on and on and on and on. But the bottom line is you're doing something out of your heart that you may not necessarily do, but you're going to do it because you know how much they appreciate you doing it. That's why you do it. That's why you do it, right? And finally, the fifth love language is physical touch. It's one of the most powerful vehicles for communicating love, is physical touch. I think it's one of the things when I think about COVID-19 that just breaks my heart, is that I can't walk up and give each of you a hug. I love physical touch. I do. I miss it. I miss it. I miss hugging you guys. Genuinely. I do. Some other examples: holding hands, kissing, lovemaking, back or feet rubs, all the above. If physical touch is your love language, there's something about feeling somebody who loves you, who you love, when they touch you. There's something energetically that happens within us when we use that love language. And for those of you that it's important, then that's really super important to you. You saw Oprah, clearly that wasn't one of hers, and that's okay. It doesn't matter, because every single one of us is different. So as we talk about these love languages, I guess the important thing is to realize, is just understand that each and every one of us has our own love language. And there's not one that's better than the other. The other thing that I would say is that there's, generally speaking, when you start to study the love languages, generally speaking, we have a primary one, and then we also might have a secondary one. So just understand that you may have a couple. And every once in a while, you may even like a little bit of a third one. Maybe. Maybe not. But there is usually a pretty good, strong primary, along with another secondary one as well. So, again, just kind of a little bit of a recap. So, what do? We discover the 5 love languages. We just talked about it. Now, your job, the homework assignment, if you will, is to go out and discover your own. Then, discover, if you're in a relationship, discover what your partner's is. Then, what do? You express love in their language. That's how you do it. So we just went through the 5 love languages, but then you have to ask the question, well, how do you do this? Well, the good news is it's pretty simple. You saw Oprah do it. So you can type up www.5lovelanguages.com and go take the test. And that's going to probably get you in the ballpark, but you'll probably wind up having to do it a couple of times before you actually really settle on one, before you really understand it. Because what I found is I went back and forth a little bit at first. So you can go take the test. The other thing that you can start to play with and pay attention to, not only with yourself, but also with your partner, if you're in a relationship, is listen to what they're asking for. Listen to what your partner is asking for. So when I started dating Leah, the thing that she would always do is she'd come up and she'd say, "Tell me a secret." What? She'd constantly be asking me, "Tell me a secret. Tell me a secret. Tell me a secret." And what I learned over time was that, yeah, there were some things that I shared with her that I thought were secrets, but that wasn't really what she wanted. What she really was asking for is, tell me something that you have observed about me that you appreciate. That's what she means when she says, "Tell me a secret." Guess what love language is one of her primary love languages? Words of appreciation. Words of appreciation. And so if you'll just listen to what your spouse is asking for, your partner is asking for, you can kind of put this thing together. You could even go take the test. And again, as a reminder, you can even do it if you're by yourself. Figure out what your love languages are. In this case, you could also pay attention to what it is that you would like to see more often from other people. I would really like to hear from somebody. I would really like to spend time with somebody. Boy, wouldn't it be fun if somebody were to give me a gift, or I need a hug, right? So it's just listening to what your own thoughts are. What am I missing? What would I really need? What would really make me happy, right? So once you discover the 5 love languages, then you figure out what yours is, then you figure out what your spouse's is, then what do? It's really simple. And really, just by the way, that's what's so amazing about this. It is so simple to do this stuff in some respects. But then what do? It's simple. You make a list of whatever your partner's or your love languages are, and then you figure out what that would look like from a physical standpoint in terms of you doing something about it. And then twice a week, you do the love language. That's it. So you sit down. If it's words of affirmation, then when my wife asks me, "Tell me a secret," guess what I'm doing? I'm paying attention to what I'm noticing about her that I really appreciate, and I do that on a regular basis. So when she asks me to tell her a secret, I've got a list of secrets I can tell her. But do you notice that I have to slow down and actually do it? It's not just rote. "I thought you looked nice today, honey." Right? It's no, I really think about it. I do. Now, I don't do this perfectly, but a lot I do because I know it's important to her and she's important to me, so therefore I go and I do this. Another thing that she really, really likes are acts of service. So she really likes it when I do stuff around the house. So I will literally pick a project that I'm always working on. I've always got something going on around the house, always. And then so what I'll do is I'll work on those projects and I won't tell her. And then what I'll do is I'll just grab her hand and I'll say, "Hey, come here, I want you to check this out." And then I'll show her what I did. And that makes her really, really happy. Does that mean I'm always loving what it is that I'm necessarily doing? No. But do I know how important it is for her? Do I know that it fills her love tank? Yes. If it fills her love tank, it's important enough for me to figure out how to do it, even if I don't want to do it. But the truth is, I love her, so of course I want to do it. Right? And we can do that for ourselves as well. The things that we want to do, the things that we wish we did for ourselves, the things that are going to fill our love tank. You can actually sit there and make a list of what am I going to do this week to prove to myself that I love myself, that I'm worthy of love. What can I do? Well, it's simple. You figure out what your love language is. You come up with a list of a couple of things that you can do, and then twice a week you do that for yourself. And you do it. And that's how you do it if you're single, right? So how does all of this tie into your divinity? So you've got these things called love languages, and you start playing with them. First of all, what you're going to notice is that the love tanks will start to rise, yours and your spouse's. And by the way, and this is a very common question that comes up in a relationship, well, what happens if I get into the 5 love languages, but my spouse or partner won't? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If one person, he has found this over and over and over again, if one person will start doing the love languages over time, most of the time, the other person will start to shift and the relationship will start to shift. So even if you're out there thinking like there's no way, my partner is going to do this with me, it's okay. Doesn't have to, right? But anyways, getting back into your divinity, here's what I believe. I believe the more we care about ourselves, the more we take care of ourselves. What the Daily Word said today was absolutely perfect. I make self-care a very, very high priority. In other words, I'm going to love myself enough to figure out who and what I am, to figure out what makes me happy, to figure out what it takes to keep my love tank filled, because I'm important enough to do that. In my opinion, when you do that, when you start to love yourself enough to take care of yourself, and you start to make sure that your love tank is always filled, in my opinion, you then can take that and walk out that door and start impacting a lot of people that are around us. Because whether we know it or not, we are making differences in people's lives. We do. Why? Because of who and what you are. Period. Even if you're not doing something, I don't know, like this or anything else like that, it doesn't matter. Your presence in people's lives matters. And the higher you can show up, the more your tank is filled up, the more that you have to give, and the more people are going to start to notice that. They will. And your impact starts to becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, oh yeah, don't forget God. God's in there. In my opinion, I've often said this, I really think that learning how to take care of yourself, learning how to love yourself specifically, if we were taught that first, in my opinion, if you learn how to love yourself first, the relationship that you have with God is a natural extension of it. Once we know how to love ourselves first, and I know that that completely changes or alters the way we've been taught, most of us have been taught, but in my opinion, when we learn how to love ourselves first, then the natural expression is just to step over here where you want to have this connection with your own divinity and this thing called God. So that's, to me, how I tie the 5 love languages into your divinity. That's how I do it. So, go play. Go have fun with this. If you've read the book, go read it again. If you haven't read it, read it. Go figure out what your love language is. Go figure out what your partner's love language is. And then start twice a week doing something about it. And in 60 days, I'm going to give you a 60-day test. Do it for 60 days. And then come back to me and let me know what changed, what happened. For me, I'm telling you, we've been playing with this now for about 3 months, like really playing with it. It's a game changer. We had a great relationship, but to me, it's taken it way beyond where it was. It's just beautiful. It just is. my love tank's pretty full. And to see, the part that's crazy is when you know, right? Because you got to kind of think this. You kind of go, well, isn't it kind of canned, Mike? I mean, you know what the other person is doing. At first, it kind of does, I have to admit. But then all of a sudden, what you understand is, you understand that this person is doing it because they care for you and they love you. And they're taking time out of their day, they're taking time out of their life to love on you. Is that not the most amazing feeling you could ever have? To know that the person in your life cares so much for you that they're willing to do stuff like that to fill your love tank? It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's beautiful. And so my hope and prayer for you is that you'll be able to take this information and use it as one of your tools. We talk about spiritual tools at Unity. Unity taught spiritual tools. That's what we do. You have a spiritual tool belt. This is an amazing one to have on your spiritual tool belt. And my hope and prayer for you is that you can take this and use it and seriously change the relationship that you have with yourself, or seriously change the relationship you have with your partner or your spouse. We good? I love you guys, always. And just understand, I'm going to acknowledge the divinity in each and every one of you, every single chance that I get. Because that's ultimately the most important part of this whole journey we're doing together, right? Yeah, awesome. God bless. Soon?